Rain hammered against the windshield as Daniel pressed harder on the gas. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. His phone kept buzzing. Vanessa again. He ignored it. His mind was a storm of its own. Tonight, he wasn't the billionaire everyone adored. Tonight, he was a man running from himself. He pulled up by the bridge, stepped out, and let the cold air hit his face. Cameras once chased him for pictures. Now he couldn't even stand his reflection in the dark water below. He had everything, money, fame, power, but somehow he felt emptier than ever. Two women occupied his thoughts. Vanessa, the glamorous influencer with millions of followers who never missed a chance to show off their relationship online, and Grace, the bookstore owner he'd met by accident, the one who spoke softly, laughed often, and looked at him like he was just a man, not a brand. But who really loved him? The billionaire, or the man behind the billions? The question burned in his chest like acid. He needed to know. He needed the truth. Back at his penthouse, Daniel stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. His assistant, Ethan, entered with a tablet in hand. "You've got a charity gala tomorrow night, and the New York Times wants," Daniel interrupted, his tone low. "Ethan, tell me something. If you lost everything tomorrow, who would still stand by you?" Ethan blinked. "Depends who knows about it." Daniel smirked faintly. "Exactly. People don't love you. They love what you can give them." Ethan sighed. "You're talking about Vanessa again, aren't you?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. Everyone around him saw what he refused to admit. Vanessa loved the spotlight more than him. Still, he wasn't sure. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe she did love him. That's when the idea hit him. Wild, reckless, but irresistible. "What if," Daniel said slowly, "I disappeared for a while? What if I made everyone believe I lost everything? Would she stay?" Ethan's jaw dropped. "You can't be serious." "I am. You're a billionaire, Daniel. You can't just vanish. There'd be news, panic." "I can stage it," Daniel cut in. "A fake business scandal, temporary bankruptcy. Let's see who sticks around when the money's gone." Ethan stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "And Grace? What about her?" Daniel looked out the window again, voice softening. "That's the point. I'll see who really cares. The one who stays. I'll know she's real." Ethan exhaled sharply. "Man, this is going to backfire. People don't play well with lies." Daniel smiled faintly. "Neither does love." The next week, headlines exploded. Grey Tech under investigation for fraud. Shares plummet 78%. The media went crazy. Daniel's social feeds filled with speculation. Business partners panicked. Vanessa called non-stop. Grace too. He met Vanessa first. She walked into his apartment in designer heels, looking flawless but uneasy. "Babe, tell me this isn't true. Say something." Daniel forced a tired smile. "It's true. The company's in trouble. I might lose everything." Her lips parted. "Everything? As in, no cars, no house, no events?" "Maybe not even that." She sat back, staring at him like he was a stranger. "Daniel, I love you, but I need stability. I've built a life around us, around what we have." "What we have?" he repeated quietly. "Or what I own?" She hesitated, then stood up, smoothing her dress. "I'll call you when things settle. Just don't talk to the press yet, okay?" He watched her walk away, her perfume lingering longer than her promises. Hours later, Grace showed up uninvited. She'd seen the news too. "Is it true?" she asked gently. Daniel nodded. "It's bad." Grace smiled faintly. "Then it's time you finally rest. You've worked too hard anyway." He frowned. "Rest? I might go broke." She shrugged. "You'll still wake up tomorrow, right? That's what matters." Something in her tone disarmed him completely. She looked around the apartment. "You know, I never liked this place. It's too quiet, too big. Maybe a smaller space would suit you better." Daniel chuckled softly. "You might get your wish." When she left, Daniel felt lighter and more confused. Two women. Two completely different reactions. That night, he told Ethan, "I'm doing it. I'm leaving everything behind for a month. New name, new apartment, no trace of my money." Ethan groaned. "Daniel, this is insane. I need to see who they are when I'm no one." 3 days later, Daniel Gray disappeared. His luxury cars, gone. His phone, wiped. His mansion, locked. He rented a small, damp apartment under the name David. Ethan arranged a fake job for him at a small auto repair shop downtown. On his first day, he walked into the workshop wearing an old t-shirt and grease-stained jeans. The air smelled like oil and sweat. Nobody recognized him. It was humbling, almost peaceful. During lunch, he scrolled through his new phone. Vanessa hadn't texted once. Grace had left 3 messages. Just checking in. Don't isolate yourself, okay? Wherever you are, I hope you're eating. He smiled at the last one. Later that evening, he sat alone at a roadside food stall eating grilled corn and fish. The vendor didn't know him. Nobody stared. For the first time in years, Daniel felt invisible and free. Then his phone buzzed. Vanessa. Hey, babe, her voice came through, sweet but strained. I've been thinking, maybe we can do a YouTube interview together. Tell people your side of the story. It'll help both our brands. Daniel closed his eyes. Even now, it was about brands. I'll think about it, he said flatly. When he hung up, he realized Grace hadn't asked for anything. Not one thing. That night, Daniel wrote in a small notebook Ethan had given him. Open quote, money can buy attention, not affection. Fame can buy followers, not friends. Close quote. And for the first time, he wondered if Grace might be the only person who'd ever seen him clearly. The next morning, Daniel's hands were already blistered. He hadn't realized how heavy a wrench could feel after just an hour. The workshop buzzed with engines and chatter, nothing like the polished boardrooms he once ruled. Yet something about the smell of oil and metal grounded him. For the first time in years, his worth wasn't measured in dollars, only in effort. Yo, new guy, shouted Malik, the senior mechanic, a big-hearted man with grease on his face. You ever touched an engine before? Daniel forced a grin. Not really. My old job was different, Malik laughed. Different, huh? You look like you typed for a living. Something like that, Daniel replied, hiding a smile. At lunch, Daniel sat on a crate eating a cheap sandwich. He glanced at his phone, still nothing from Vanessa. But Grace had sent another message. You don't have to talk. Just know you're not alone. He didn't reply, but those words stayed with him all day. Later that evening, Grace called. Her voice came softly through the cracked phone speaker. David, Daniel, I heard you're laying low. You okay? He hesitated. Trying to be. Do you need anything? I can bring food or... No, he said quickly. You've done enough already. She paused. I just don't like seeing you disappear into your own head. Promise you'll come by the shop tomorrow? I could use help unpacking some boxes. He almost said no, but something in her tone melted him. All right, I'll come. When they hung up, Daniel couldn't stop smiling. The next day, he showed up at Grace's bookstore. It was small, but cozy, shelves stacked unevenly, the faint scent of paper and coffee in the air. She handed him a box. You're officially my assistant for the day, Daniel laughed. Do I get paid? You get free coffee, she teased. As they worked, she spoke about her dream of turning the shop into a reading space for kids. Daniel listened, fascinated. Nobody talked to him like this, not about profits or headlines, but about hope. At one point, she looked at him and said, You know, people only see your best days, but I think the truest parts of you come out when everything's falling apart. Those words hit deep. That evening, Daniel walked home under flickering streetlights, his chest full of something new, peace. But peace doesn't last long in stories like this, because when he got home, his phone buzzed again. This time, not Grace. Vanessa. Hey, babe, where are you? I've been worried, she said sweetly. There's a charity event tomorrow. Even if you've lost a bit, showing up will remind people you're still powerful. He could almost hear the script in her voice. I'm taking time off, he said flatly. Daniel, she whispered, don't throw everything away. We're a team. Let's fight this together. Her words sounded perfect, but hollow. Daniel hung up and sat on the edge of his small bed. The peeling paint around him felt more honest than every luxury he'd owned. For the first time, he wondered if Vanessa could ever see him the way Grace did, without the spotlight. The next afternoon, the sun burned hot against the cracked streets as Daniel walked back from the workshop. His body ached, but there was a quiet pride in his steps. He passed a small market, bought a cup of chilled juice and smiled to himself. Nobody recognized him, nobody expected anything from him, and that was oddly freeing. When he reached his tiny apartment, his phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Vanessa, but a news notification. Vanessa Lane spotted partying with celebrity friends amid Greatex scandal. Daniel stared at the photo, her laughing in a sequin dress, holding a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Moving on gracefully." He let out a dry laugh. Moving on, huh? Still, the sting was sharp. That evening, Grace called again. You sound tired, she said. I am, he admitted. Physically, emotionally, all of it. Then stop pretending you're made of steel. Come by tomorrow. I'll cook something for you. He wanted to refuse, but her voice carried warmth. He couldn't resist. Okay, what time? Evening. And don't bring your money. Just bring your appetite. The next night, he arrived at her apartment. The smell of fried rice filled the air, and music played softly in the background. Grace wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair tied up. She looked nothing like the polished women he usually dated, yet somehow she glowed more. They ate, laughed, and talked about everything. Childhood memories, dreams, even fears. She told him how her mother used to read bedtime stories every night until she passed away. He told her how his father's company had swallowed his childhood whole. For the first time, he wasn't Daniel Gray, the billionaire. He was just a man sharing dinner with someone who saw through his walls. When he got home that night, he wrote another note in his notebook. Open quote, "The poor don't envy the rich as much as the rich envy the simple life." Close quote. Days passed, and Daniel kept up the act. He worked, saved a few dollars, visited Grace, and stayed offline. But trouble always finds its way in. One morning, Ethan showed up at the workshop in a hurry, pretending to be a delivery guy. He slipped Daniel a note when no one was watching. "Vanessa's getting suspicious. She's hired someone to look for you. Grace might get dragged into this." Daniel's stomach tightened. He hadn't realized how deep he'd gone. What started as an experiment was now pulling innocent people into the fire. That night, he called Ethan from a payphone. "If she finds Grace..." "She won't," Ethan interrupted. "But you need to end this soon. You've got what you wanted." Daniel was silent. Did he? He had answers, but also guilt. He hung up and looked at the night sky. Somewhere between losing his wealth and finding his peace, he'd discovered something terrifying. The truth was heavier than the lie. The next few days passed quietly, too quietly. Daniel went to work, kept his head down, and stayed out of sight. But peace never lasts long when the past is hunting you. One evening, while sweeping the floor of the workshop, he noticed a sleek black car parked across the street. Tinted windows, no movement. His pulse quickened. He turned away and kept working, pretending not to notice. Later that night, Grace called. Her voice was light, but there was a strange tension beneath it. "Hey, someone came by the cafe today asking about you," she said. Daniel froze. "What did they say?" "They said they were your cousin, but I don't know. They had this weird attitude, like they were fishing for something." He swallowed hard. "What did you tell them?" "That you work hard, that you're a good guy." "Why, David? What's going on?" He hesitated, then said softly, "Nothing, probably just a misunderstanding. Don't worry about it." But she did worry. He could hear it in her silence. After hanging up, Daniel sat on his bed, staring at the peeling paint on the wall. He could almost hear his father's voice in his head. "You can't build truth on lies, son." He'd started this game to test love. Now it was starting to destroy the very thing he wanted to find. The next morning, the black car was gone. But Vanessa wasn't. She showed up at the workshop. The sight of her in that place was surreal. High heels clicking on the greasy floor, perfume cutting through the smell of oil and metal. The other workers paused, confused. "David," she said mockingly. "Or should I say Daniel Gray?" Every head turned. His secret detonated like a bomb. Daniel straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for my boyfriend," she said, smiling bitterly. "The one who vanished after his company's stocks dipped. I had a feeling you were testing me, but this..." She looked around, disgusted. "This is insane." He kept his voice calm. "You were never supposed to find me." "Well, I did," she snapped. "And for what? To see if I'd still love you if you were broke. You didn't need to fake poverty to know the answer, Daniel. You could have just asked." The workers pretended not to listen, but every ear was tuned in. He sighed. "I needed to know the truth." "The truth?" she scoffed. "The truth is you're afraid of love. You test people because you don't trust anyone, not even yourself." Before he could reply, Grace appeared at the door holding a bag of lunch. Her eyes darted between them. "Daniel?" she whispered. The silence that followed was unbearable. Vanessa smirked. "Oh, she doesn't know, does she?" Grace's face paled. "Know what?" Daniel's heart pounded. The web he'd spun was collapsing fast, and now both women stood in its center. The air in the workshop thickened with tension. The machines hummed faintly in the background, but everyone's eyes were glued to the unfolding drama. Grace stood frozen at the door, her lunch bag trembling in her hand. "Daniel?" she repeated, her voice cracking. "What's she talking about?" Vanessa folded her arms, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Oh, let me explain," she said sweetly. "Your humble mechanic boyfriend here isn't who he says he is. He's Daniel Gray, billionaire CEO of Greytech. He's been pretending to be poor to test which of us would love him if he had nothing." The entire workshop fell into shocked whispers. Grace's eyes widened, flicking to Daniel. "Is that true?" Daniel opened his mouth but couldn't find his voice. Guilt and shame strangled him. "Grace, She stepped back, her expression twisting with disbelief. "You lied to me all this time?" Vanessa gave a small, mocking laugh. "Join the club." Daniel raised his hands helplessly. "I didn't mean to hurt either of you. I just needed to know who loved me. Me, not the money, not the name." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "So I was just part of your experiment? A test subject?" "No, you were the only real thing in all of this," he said desperately. But Vanessa wasn't done. She turned to Grace with a cold smile. "Don't you see? He never respected either of us. To him, we're just pawns on a chessboard." "Enough!" Daniel snapped. His voice echoed through the workshop. "You used me too, Vanessa. When the press turned, you left. You wanted status, not love." Vanessa's smirk faltered, but she didn't back down. "At least I never lied about who I was." Grace dropped the lunch bag. It hit the floor with a dull thud, spilling rice and vegetables across the tiles. Her tears came faster now. "You made me believe you were one of us. You made me care." Daniel took a step toward her, but she backed away. "Grace, please." "No," she said, shaking her head. "But you don't get to say my name right now." She turned and walked out, her footsteps echoing like thunder in his chest. Vanessa sighed dramatically and followed. "Looks like your little test failed, Daniel. 2 women, 0 loyalty." He stood there, surrounded by silence and judgmental stares. Every man in the room knew what he'd done wasn't just foolish, it was cruel. Later that night, Daniel sat alone in his dark apartment. The walls seemed to close in on him. His disguise lay crumpled on the floor, the worn clothes, the fake ID, the cheap phone. He stared at them and whispered, "I wanted to know who loved me for me, but now I don't even know who I am anymore." His phone buzzed, a message from Ethan. "The story's out, man. Social media's on fire. Rich liar is trending." Daniel's stomach dropped. His private experiment had just become a public scandal. Morning came with a storm, not the kind that drenched the streets, but the kind that destroyed reputations. Daniel's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications flashed across the screen. Billionaire fakes poverty to test girlfriends. Cruelty or genius. Daniel Gray's twisted love experiment. # Rich Liar hits 10 million views in 24 hours. He scrolled through the headlines, each one worse than the last. His PR team had tried to control the damage, but the internet had already made its judgment. Memes, parodies, opinion videos, everyone had something to say. Ethan called. "Daniel, the board wants you to make a statement immediately. Investors are panicking." "I can't," Daniel said flatly. "You have to. The company's bleeding money. People think you've lost it." "Maybe I have." He hung up before Ethan could argue. He felt hollow. The money, the company, the control, none of it mattered. He'd traded trust for curiosity, love for proof. A knock came at the door. He froze. For a moment he hoped it was Grace, but when he opened it, a swarm of paparazzi flooded the hallway, cameras flashing like lightning. "Mr. Gray, is it true you manipulated your girlfriends? Was this all for a documentary? Are you and Vanessa still together?" He slammed the door shut, his chest heaving. That night he put on a hoodie and snuck out the back exit. He needed air, needed to feel something real again. He walked aimlessly through the city until he found himself standing outside Grace's cafe. The lights were off, chairs stacked on tables. Only the glow of her phone inside revealed she was still there. He stood outside for a long moment before finally knocking. Grace looked up, startled. When she saw him, her face hardened. She opened the door halfway. "What are you doing here, Daniel?" He hesitated. "I just needed to see you." "Well, congratulations," she said, crossing her arms. "You've seen me. Now leave." "Please, Grace. I messed up. I thought if I pretended to be someone else, I'd find someone who loved me without all the noise. I didn't mean to hurt you." She shook her head slowly. You don't understand what you did. You didn't just lie. You made me believe in something fake. You took away my choice to love you honestly." Her words hit harder than any headline. "Grace, I'm sorry," she sighed, stepping back. "You can keep your apology, Daniel. You have the whole world watching you now. Maybe tell them you're sorry." The door closed softly, but it felt like a gunshot in his chest. He stood there in the cold night, staring at the sign above the cafe, Heart and Brew. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had all the money in the world, yet the one thing he couldn't buy or test, real love, had slipped through his fingers. The next morning, Daniel dragged himself into the Grey Tech headquarters. Cameras were lined up outside, reporters shouting questions as he walked through the glass doors. Inside, the mood was cold. His employees looked away. Conversations stopped the moment he passed. When he entered the boardroom, a dozen executives sat waiting. His longtime mentor, Mr. Foster, stood at the head of the table. "Daniel," he said quietly, "we've all seen the news." "I know," Daniel replied. Mr. Foster slid a stack of reports toward him. "Our stock dropped 17% overnight. Partners are reconsidering their contracts. This scandal, it's not just about your love life, it's about trust. You built a company on ethics and innovation, and now people see you as a manipulator." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I didn't do this to manipulate anyone. I was trying to find truth." Foster shook his head. "Then you found it in the worst way possible. The board's voting to suspend you as CEO, temporarily." Daniel didn't fight it. He just nodded. "Do what you must." When the meeting ended, Ethan caught up with him outside. "Man, you're taking this too calmly." Daniel gave a tired smile. "Maybe because I deserve it." For the next few days, he stayed silent. No interviews, no statements, just silence. But the pressure kept mounting. The public demanded an explanation. Finally, Ethan convinced him to record a message. That night, Daniel sat in front of his camera. No lights, no crew, no PR polish. Just him in a dim room, speaking from the heart. "Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Gray. You've probably seen the stories, most of them true. I pretended to live as an ordinary man to understand what love meant without the filters of money and fame. But in doing that, I broke trust, hurt 2 women, and disappointed people who believed in me. This isn't a defense, it's an apology." He paused, taking a shaky breath. "I've learned something. Real love doesn't need to be tested. It needs to be trusted. And the next time I look for love, I won't hide who I am." He ended the video with a soft plea. "If you've ever made a mistake trying to protect your heart, learn from mine. Don't turn honesty into a game." He posted it and turned off his phone. The next morning, the video had millions of views. But something unexpected was happening. The comments were changing tone. People were forgiving him. Some even called the video raw and brave. And then, among thousands of comments, he saw one that froze him. Open quote. "People make mistakes. It takes courage to face them. Grace." Close quote. He stared at the screen, barely breathing. She'd watched it. And even though her words were few, they meant everything. For the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope. Small, fragile, but real. The comment from Grace replayed in Daniel's mind all night. He read it over and over, each time feeling a mix of relief and guilt. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it wasn't anger either. It was something in between. A door cracked open. The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He grabbed his jacket and drove across town. No driver, no bodyguard, no press. Just him. The cafe looked the same, the sign a little faded, the smell of roasted coffee beans still drifting through the morning air. Grace was behind the counter, talking to a customer. When she saw him, her smile faltered. She didn't speak, just kept making the latte in silence. Daniel waited until the cafe emptied, then approached. "Can I talk to you?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. 5 minutes, she said, glancing at the clock. He nodded, stepping closer. "I saw your comment," he began, "and I wanted to say, thank you. You didn't have to say anything." Grace crossed her arms, her expression calm but guarded. "You said everything that needed to be said in your video. I'm not here to humiliate you, Daniel. I'm just tired." He nodded slowly. "I get that. You have every right to be. But I came here because I wanted to make things right, not online, in person." "Make things right," she repeated, almost laughing. "You can't fix trust with words." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm not asking for your trust back. I'm asking for the chance to earn it again, from the beginning." Grace looked at him for a long time, eyes searching his face. "You really mean that?" "Yes," he said. "If it means volunteering here, serving coffee, whatever. I'll do it. I don't want to prove I'm rich or smart or deserving. I just want to prove I'm real." Her lips curved slightly, the first hint of a smile in weeks. "You don't need to serve coffee, Daniel. You just need to stop hiding from who you are." "I'm trying," he said softly, "every day." Grace turned toward the window, watching the morning crowd pass by. "You hurt me, Daniel, but I saw that video, and for the first time, it felt like you weren't performing. You were just you. Maybe that's what I was waiting to see." He smiled faintly. "So is that a maybe?" She chuckled under her breath. "It's not a yes either." "I'll take a maybe," he said, relief washing over his face. Just then, a group of students recognized him through the window, whispering and taking photos. Grace noticed, rolled her eyes, and sighed. "Guess you'll always be famous." Daniel shrugged. "Maybe, but right now, I just want to be the guy sweeping the floor after closing." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible," he smiled, "and persistent." Grace looked at him again, her eyes softening. "Okay, Daniel, 1 cup of coffee. Sit down." He exhaled, maybe for the first time in peace. Daniel sat quietly at the corner table while Grace poured 2 cups of coffee. The warmth of the cafe wrapped around them like a soft blanket, a quiet refuge from the chaos outside. When she slid the cup toward him, their fingers brushed. Brief, but enough to make him remember how it felt when things were simple. They drank in silence for a moment before she finally spoke. "You know, I used to think people like you lived in another world, untouchable. But sitting here, I see you're just human, flawed, scared, confused like everyone else." He nodded slowly. "That's all I ever wanted someone to see, the man, not the mask." Grace tilted her head, studying him. "Maybe you didn't need to pretend to be poor to find that. Maybe you just needed to stop being afraid of being seen." Her words hit him deeper than she realized. He smiled faintly. "You're right. I spent my whole life trying to control everything. Love, business, people. Because I was scared they'd leave if I didn't." "And what did you learn?" she asked. "That control isn't love. It's fear." Grace's eyes softened, a tiny smile curving her lips. "Good. Maybe there's hope for you yet." They both laughed. Awkward at first, then genuine. It felt like something fragile was healing between them. Just then, Daniel's phone buzzed. Ethan again. He ignored it, and Grace raised an eyebrow. "You're really going to ignore your business calls?" He grinned. "For once, yes. My company can wait. This moment can't." She smiled, shaking her head. "You're still dramatic." "Occupational hazard," he joked. After a few minutes, she leaned back. "I don't know if I can trust you again completely, Daniel, but I can see you're trying, and that means something." "That's all I could ask for," he said. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft and steady. Grace stood, walked to the window, and watched people hurry past with umbrellas. "Funny," she said. "It was raining the day I met you." He joined her at the window. "And I lied that day too." She looked at him, smiling. "At least you're honest about your lies now." He laughed. And, for the first time in months, it didn't sound broken. As the rain continued to fall, Grace turned to him. "If you really want to make things right, start with yourself. Forgive yourself first. You can't build something new if you're still punishing yourself for the old." He nodded, her words echoing in his heart. When she turned to make another pot of coffee, Daniel looked around the cafe, this small, imperfect place that somehow felt more like home than any mansion ever did. He smiled at the camera of his mind, as though speaking to the millions who'd watched his story unfold. Open quote, "Sometimes you have to lose everything. Money, status, love, just to find yourself again. And when you do, protect that truth with everything you have." Close quote. He picked up his cup, raised it slightly, and whispered, "Open quote, to honesty, to second chances, to love that doesn't need a test." Close quote. Open quote. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that remind us love is only real when it's honest.